In this guide, we'll discuss Flame Leviathan Normal Mode. Here is where I'll go over the basic strategies and abilities of the fight. We'll discuss the vehicles, how they work, and how to use them effectively. If you're looking for the Hard Mode boss guide, use the link in the description or click the annotation on the screen. Let's get into it! Flame Leviathan is a massive armored tank that guards the courtyard entrance to Ulduar. Similar to the end of the Malagos fight or the Lay Guardian Aragos fight in Oculus, this fight is handled purely on a vehicle. There are 3 different vehicles to choose from and 5 of each vehicle to use. There are Salvaged Siege Engines, Salvaged Demolishers, and Salvaged Choppers. Each vehicle can hold more than one person and do a variety of abilities. Salvaged siege engines hold 2 players, a driver and a passenger, each with their own set of abilities. Its primary role is to be the tank and also interrupt Flame Leviathan. The driver's abilities are Ram, which deals damage in front of the vehicle and knocks back, Electroshock, which is a 25-yard cone in front of the vehicle, dealing damage and interrupting any casts, and Steam Rush, which dashes forward for 4 seconds and dealing damage to any enemies in its path while also knocking them back. Treat this ability like a slow blink. You don't have a lot of control over your vehicle while Steam Rush is active. The passenger has Anti-Air Rocket, which fires an explosive missile that explodes on contact with air targets. Fire Cannon, which inflicts AoE damage on impact on the ground. And Shield Generator, which places a shield around the siege engine for 5 seconds. This absorbs a limited amount of frost, physical, fire, and arcane damage. Next, we have the Salvaged Demolishers. These can carry 2 players as well, a driver and a passenger, also with their own set of abilities. These are your throughput vehicles. They can deal massive damage, and the driver can also throw their passenger up onto Flame Leviathan so they can stun him. Let's talk first about the Demolisher driver. It has Hurl Boulder. This deals massive physical damage on the ground. Hurl Pyrite Barrel. This inflicts very massive damage and puts a stacking dot up that also deals heavy damage, stacking up to 10 times. This ability can only be used if you have Pyrite on your vehicle. Ram, this is similar to the Siege Engine, dealing damage and knocking enemies back. And finally, Throw Passenger. Your passenger must load into the catapult before this ability becomes available to use. You still must throw in a direction and you can miss the boss. So if you don't aim it at all, you're in for a bad time. Make sure you're facing the boss when you use this ability. Now for the passengers. The passengers have Mortar, which is fire damage in a targeted area on the ground. Anti-Air Rocket, which is the same as the Siege Engine. Grab Crate. This grabs any targeted crate of Pyrite. Ensure you click on the Pyrite. It won't target it for you. Increased Speed. If the demo gets targeted by the boss, use this to create some distance. And finally, Load into Catapult. This puts the passenger into the catapult, disabling all other abilities for the driver until you are thrown. The final vehicle is the Salvaged Chopper. This is a small, quick motorcycle that can hold 2 players, but only the driver can use abilities. It has Sonic Horn, which is your primary damage ability in a 35-yard frontal cone. Speed Boost, which increases movement speed by 100% for 5 seconds. And Tar, which drops a pool of tar behind the chopper that slows enemy units. Can be set on fire by Mortar. And finally, First Aid Kit, which heals the passenger to full HP over 4 seconds. That does it for vehicles. Now let's talk about the boss abilities. Flame Leviathan has 4 abilities and 1 ad that spawns on normal mode. We have Missile Barrage. This inflicts 4,000 damage to several random vehicles. Flame Vents. This inflicts 3,000 fire damage every 1 second to enemies within 50 yards of the caster. It lasts for 10 seconds and can be interrupted. Battering Ram inflicts 100% weapon damage to the target and applies a stackable debuff that increases damage taken by 50% for 20 seconds. This is his primary melee attack. Gathering Speed increases the boss's movement speed by 5% for 10 minutes, stacking up to 20 times. Overload resets the stacks back to 0. The ad he spawns is a Leviathan defense turret. These are small turrets that are on top of the boss, which once all are killed cause the boss to overload and stop. He will then shut down his systems for 20 seconds and repair. This increases his damage taken by 50%. Now, strategy time. Now that I've gone over all the information you need to combat this boss, let's talk about some strategy. For the normal mode, Flame Leviathan will have approximately 80 million hit points. Each of the vehicles scale with your item level, so ensure you have your highest item level players as the Demolisher drivers to increase the vehicle health and damage. Also set up 4 ranged classes, not hunters, to be the Demolisher passengers. Before the fight begins, shoot down any and all pyrite in the arena so it's easily available to pick up quickly. At the start of the fight, have your Demolisher passengers load up into the catapult and start the fight off by launching your 4 players onto the boss's back and kill the Leviathan defense turrets. Once those are dead, the 4 players will be kicked off the back of the boss to the ground and will need to be picked up by choppers and brought back to their Demolisher gunner spot. The quicker this occurs, the easier it is to keep the pyrite stacks up on the boss. As a Demolisher, don't spam the pyrite. The goal is to keep the stacks up. It lasts for 10 seconds, so cast it every 7 or 8 seconds as needed to keep the stacks up. Depending on how fast your first shutdown is, you may be able to get your 10 stacks up and recharge your pyrite before the first shutdown ends. Once shutdown ends, all your DPS should be back in their Demolisher and have grabbed some additional pyrite as well as have shot some additional down. This is good practice for hard mode, as the Demolishers cannot lose their pyrite stacks at any point to ensure Flame Leviathan dies. Throughout the fight, Flame Leviathan will pick a siege engine or a Demolisher and fixate on them and chase them. That player will need to kite the boss. At no point should you ever get hit by his melee. Choppers should be putting down tar in front of the boss, and demo and siege engine passengers should be lighting it on fire. The final mechanic is flame vents. This must be interrupted quickly by a siege engine driver, as it does massive damage to the whole raid. All siege engines should be trying to hit this. There's no reason not to. In short, throw your passenger up at the start to shut him down quickly, interrupt flame vents, grab and shoot pyrite down, keep your pyrite stacks up, and don't get hit by his melee. That's it, and you've secured your entry into Ulduar. Thanks so much for watching, and if you're interested in a hard mode guide, check the description for the link to that video. See you next time!